Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. I'm on animal chores this weekend, so out here early in the morning, going around moving poultry, moving sheep, checking on the pigs, and keeping my eyes on the gardens while everyone else takes a nice weekend break. We've been really on it with weekend chore rotations and rotating at the farmers market so we all get adequate time off, but wanted to walk you around and show you a day in the life on weekend chores here at Wild East Farm. Pigs are eating, and we've got them in this strip of woods that's different from where we've run them the last two seasons. This is primarily what appears to be a loblolly pine planting that occurred some decades ago and was never harvested off of, but you can see it's not too dense in here, but there's some really nice trees that are ready to be harvested that we could make good use of. We've had a prescribed burn in here, and that's where you can see some of the understory, like this red maple, as well as some of the understory poplar, were killed by the prescribed burn, which was the intended outcome. And that's because as we thin out the loblolly in here, we're aiming to select for white oak and hickory, which also do occur in here, but you can see just by the shape of these trees, there's so much shade, they're trying to grow outward towards the edge. And so with pigs, fire, and selective removal, we can convert this semi-sterile woodland that is primarily poplar, maple, and overstory of loblolly pine into native hardwood. So, very simple setup to get all this feed weighed efficiently. We've got these gravity wagons where we store bulk feed directly out in the field. We can weigh it out quite easily because on most of the buckets we've marked 5-pound increments that were measured and pre-weighed and marked so that we can get the right amount of feed out without having a scale out here. Easily pours out of the chute and goes directly on our cart to be delivered to the various birds. And then we also store a big tote of grit, which is just creek sand that we harvest from a sandbar in the creek and bring out grit to the chickens and turkeys as well. We find giving these birds the right amount of grit is really important to support their digestion and conversion of the food. What the grit does is they essentially eat it down and store it in their gizzard, and since chickens and turkeys and really any bird don't have teeth, they depend on some coarse material in their gizzard to assist in grinding up the food. Now, in certain contexts, and certainly wild birds, they get it naturally by pecking around at the ground and getting the grit they need if it's present. However, we found that their digestion and feed conversion in our context is greatly impacted if we don't give them grit. So that's part of the daily chore, and they eat it right up like it's food. cruising down Northfield. Beautiful, thick, lush grass. And here in year 3, the tree lanes are establishing themselves really beautifully, putting on loads of growth. And just from the visual perspective, turning from what looked like a pasture that had some saplings in it to more defined rows of trees. We're starting to get some of our first fruits off of mulberries and seeing apples and pears developing. And it's been really amazing in year 3 to watch the transformation of this space. First batch of spring turkeys we've ever done are just about 2 weeks out from processing. And it's gone quite well, but I think autumn is a time of year that turkeys are more suited for. It gets quite hot this time of year, and when they're this large, there's definitely an element of heat stress that they experience. So, not sure if we'll do spring turkeys again, but it's been good to trial and get that experience firsthand. And what I do really like about having turkeys on the farm is their impact on the ground. So I'll walk you through a paddock that they just exited and show you the comparison between that and an area they haven't been. So in here, you can see the grass is trampled down, laid flat, really pushing seed heads into the ground and creating this protective mat, almost like a skin over the ground. And the turkeys eat grass voraciously and peck away at seed heads. And this is just after 2 days of impact. We move them every other day right now. And that's compared to areas that look like this. So we'll put them in a paddock that looks just like this time of year. Really thick, hasn't been clipped, hasn't been grazed, hasn't been impacted by poultry at all yet, and looks almost like an impenetrable wall of grass. And in just 2 days of turkeys being in there, they trample it down, eat loads of the available forage in there, and shed manure, and we see them moving around, having this impact beautifully on this part of the farm. Batch 4 of the spring chickens are ready to move. After about a week in the field with single-day paddocks, we open it up into 2-day paddocks, where their impact in the day, in one day, is really concentrated to where their structures are, and they have access to the front here, but they're so dispersed that there's not heavy impact from their foraging or their manure, and it prevents us from having to move fencing around every day. So I'm setting up a fence for the next 2 days after I move them forward here, and then starting tomorrow, whoever comes out to do chores will just be able to open up that gate, move them into the next 2-day paddock, and just cuts labor a lot by not having to set up fence every single day, take down fence every single day. And they seem to enjoy having the extra room to forage around and explore. All right, got them moved. You can see impacted area versus where they are now, and just want to show you some of the intricacies. So we've got their waterers plumbed up and affixed to this tractor, so we don't have to move them separately. They've got these pieces of old electrical that can clip on the downward position to keep them stable, and when we want to move, we just disconnect the water using this little quick valve that shuts it off, and that's a little quick twist removal to get the hose off of the tractor. And we can pull these up and clip them there, so they're riding above the ground as we move the tractor. And then feeders, quite simple. Also thinking about not picking up and moving things as much as possible. These are just 6-inch PVC cut in half and bolted on to this bottom 2x2 of the actual chicken tractor, and they can hold a good amount of feed each. So each tractor has 2 of them, 4 feeders total, and then some additional auxiliary feeders that are just out here because we don't have any chicks in the brooder now, and experimenting with spreading out their feeding space even more. But chickens are happy. These guys are just over 4 weeks old, and they'll be our last batch of the spring that we process right at the end of June. We're processing batch 3 tomorrow and Tuesday, and we do batches of around 600. So we break it into 2 days, which also means breaking up the chickens in the field leading up to processing. We want to restrict the feed to 0 on the batch that we're processing tomorrow today, so they get a full 24 hours with no food. That clears their digestive tract and ensures that we have no chicken poop on the table or on our hands while we're processing. So split them up. These guys are getting processed Tuesday, and back there are getting processed tomorrow. So right in front of me we have food, and these guys do not. We essentially break them up by creating a funnel in the field. We get one chicken tractor up in front of it and stage a bunch of these crates with a narrow gap where we can push the right amount of chickens and keep a rough count as we're going, and close off between the two just using the crates. So it's nice they're already out here ready for us to collect the chickens tomorrow morning. And it's important to stack these high enough that the chickens can't just hop on them, because what we've seen with that is chickens in the feed restricted paddock can get hungry enough that they'll hop over, and you'll not really know how many chickens you have in each batch anymore, and you're not really sure who you may be processing or wanting to process that does or does not have a full gut. So got it all set up, and tomorrow we'll come out first thing in the morning, collect these guys, and bring them in for processing. I'm going to document some of that as well. Elderflower coming in full steam. These were just little plugs about 6 inches tall when we planted them 2 years ago, and wrapping up animal chores, going over to our willow hedge on the edge of the south gardens, and just gonna prune back some cuttings and bring them to the sheep for tree hay. In case you missed my last video, I'm making a lot of movement with Small Scale Revival, planning for the future of the business to act as an educational platform, using what we're doing at Wild East and other projects to inform and bring more people into the small scale agricultural movement in a meaningful and deliberate way. So I have links in the description. Please check out the website. Let me know if you liked this video, if you like more of the day-to-day walking around, more of the zoomed out approach and philosophy type videos, or a mix of both. If you leave a comment in the description, that would be, if you leave a comment below saying what kind of videos you like, that'd be very helpful. Tomatoes are beautiful. We're getting our first picks of the cherries a whole month earlier than last year. So very exciting times here on the farm. So that's it for today's video. Just walking through a Sunday morning, taking care of all the animals, allowing other folks on the farm to rest. Everyone's doing really well. Want to document the upcoming weeks, as there's quite a bit of activity going on in the market gardens, processing chickens, processing turkeys, and ramping up through June as we prepare for our annual July break. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time.